and then they'll email. Hey,
Uh,
Brian, hang on. I gotta go live here. I gotta
okay.
go live. I gotta get my stuff together here.
What's up, Lise?
Hey, how you doing, Brian? You know what? You're such
Good.
an awesome guy. I'm so excited.
This will be fun. This will be
Okay,
a lot
we're
of
just
fun.
going live now. It's just gonna start streaming. Well, hello everybody and welcome everyone. I'm so excited. I have a guest today by the name of Brian. And Brian, you know what? Do you want to tell everybody who you are and what it is that you specialize in? Because I find you absolutely intriguing and the world should know about Brian.
I appreciate you, Lise, so very much. So I specialize in techniques of applied spirituality. I'm a dean of a magical practice at the Gray School of Wizardry, and I specialize in the application of mentorship and development of the individual person in union with the divine, and the application of all of the things from business to religious traditions to personal traditions and things like that. So that's what I get up to. And that's what I help people cultivate in their own lives, in their own systems, in their own communities.
So, Brian, tell the audience exactly how we met and how we correlate with our different philosophies and the work that we do.
So we met, if memory serves, through Project Next Level, when they assigned us into a group room of a bunch of different people that we had no idea who was who and who was what. And so that was a fantastic experience that we got to go through with Dean and Tony through that program. And we've been able to mesh our passion for helping people using alternate pathways of expression. And I say that by the way that you use the medicine wheel to help people overcome grief and to help them heal through their darker periods, right?
Mm.
And how I like to blend that in is that it's an extension of the divine. It's an extension of the principles that I work with and teach people how to interact with. So our work, I think, goes hand in hand. It's like you just help in a very specific way with grief, while I'm giving people the techniques and tools to interact with spirit and the non-tangible aspects of creation.
Absolutely. And I appreciate all your insights of how you can use some of the ceremonies in order to help to heal, to bring one's self to the connection to the higher power, the divine spirit of the mysticism, in order to help to heal the pain.
Oh,
So,
absolutely. I mean, and that's the thing is since 2007, I've been doing I got licensed to the ULC. So that was the Universal Life Church. So I've done weddings and I'm licensed to do funeral ceremonies, exorcism, that sort of the whole like gamut of the church. And what its belief systems are based on is that anybody who's going through that program is going to do divine work anyway. So I've really tried to follow up and get very specific on how I can use these kinds of things for rites of passage and to help create experiences which allow for people to go through those transitional periods in life. So if they've lost a loved one, there's a ceremony that I've got in one of my books that allows the individual to speak for the dead as an intermediary, as someone who would be, this is their life, this is what they did, and yes, they can cross through the boundary. If they were non-religious, they can go and they can rejoin the cycle of souls and eventually walk the path of reincarnation, etc. At least that's the idea of it anyway. So that way it gives a type of closure to the living.
mm-hmm.
And I've had people, contact me for creating spirit totems and things like that. So we use ashes of the deceased and put them in either a gourd or a bottle and make it really pretty. But I use the sacred stones and things like that intermixed in that to be able to give it a presence. And what one of my clients said to me at one point was, it's reminds me that they're still there. And that's one of the most important things that we can be reminded of, in my opinion, is that the spirits that made us, formed us, walk with us always, even if they're not with us in person. The lessons are there, the love is there, the compassion is there.
Absolutely, absolutely. And I feel that, that connection, some people call it closure, but it could also be an opening of how to connect.
Oh, absolutely. And that's one of those things where I love studying the classics, like the Transcendental Magic by Eliphas Levi is one of the things that I'm working with currently for my own coursework that I'm developing. And there is the type of, it's a scary word for most, is the interaction with the dead, is to speak with them, is to give them perfume, is to give them offerings, to lift them up. And it shouldn't be. That should be a practice that's accepted by every culture. And that's what I'm working on trying to suss out, if you will, is to be, what are acceptable things that we can use today in our modern day with all the technology, all the bells and whistles of whatever, but still using stuff that they've been using since the ancient times, and that's where my focus has been as of late, however.
Exactly. And I think it's quite amazing that your insights are very close to mine as well, because as you know, the loss of 4 significant people in my life, I've seen so many different signs that they're still with me. They're always there, present as angels or whatever you call them out there, that there is an energy that is still here.
Oh, absolutely.
And that love is eternal, and there is hope for healing and moving through some of those darkest days.
Oh, absolutely. Very much so.
Yeah.
So like, for example, one of very simple method that you could use would be the combination of herbs. All right. So mind your allergies, people, if you mix this up. But there's a plant called Althea. There's a plant called wood betony, and there's a plant called maidenhair fern. And the combination of those 3 ingredients is the Althea causes spirit. It's a spirit puller. It's a good spirit puller. It draws in those energies. And then you have the wood betony, which prevents evil. So you're only drawing in the things that you want. And the maidenhair fern, it draws in grace. So it pulls with the spirit, the energies of grace and hope and all of the wonderful things that spirit can do. And you can just put that on your altar or your space around where you have those growing, or the images of the deceased or whoever it is. And you can incorporate natural elements of herbalism in the natural world with your loved ones and with those energies. And if you cultivate plants, then those 3 are an example of a way that you can attach the ancient wisdom into bringing that sort of thing further in your environment.
I appreciate that so much, because, so many times people forget that there are some amazing different kind of elements that can help you, such as nature. Like, when I talk about the teachings in the medicine wheel, I talk about the 4 sacred medicines that we use, and that's the tobacco, the sage, sweetgrass, and also the cedar. And that helps to cleanse our body, minds, and spirits, so that mixture, that protection, and knowing that those different elements really can help us through those times. It's another accumulation of adding to our toolbox.
Well, absolutely.
And so what you're saying is that in what you do is you can add through the ceremonies, through the medicines that you use. And, also for myself, I think about the cosmos, the sunshine, the stars, the moon, and the earth, basically. And even the fire, the different elements, all these different things that are parts of the things that we can add to our, adding on to all the different things that we can utilize to heal.
Oh, absolutely. And we picked a great day to do this, is because last night till dawn this morning was Ebook, one of the Celtic pre-Christian holidays. And it was basically meaning in the belly. It's the halfway point of winter. So it's where it's a light ceremony of Saint Bridget. It's
Mhm.
where we bring the illumination of, we're in midwinter. It's halfway to the equinox, right? Where we can bring out the light of things. And one of the most beautiful things that I was able to study is that there are the ancient druids. What they would do is they would call on the sun, they would call on the moon, they would call on the earth, and it would not be in any way outside of exactly what you just mentioned. So the fact that these two separate cultures, separated by an ocean, are using the same foundations is just
Mhm.
absolutely exquisite.
Exactly. And right now, because we are going into a very different shift, we're going into the so-called Leo
Yeah.
section of the horoscope, and the moon and the tides and everything is changing. There's such a big change right now. It is 2022, and even some of the numerical numbers are very interesting as well.
Oh,
So
absolutely.
all these things are gifts that we can utilize to actually add upon our grief uh, warrior tools, or whatever it is that you want to manifest when you're going through problems.
Oh, absolutely. And one of the things is I love your toolbox about dealing with grief because, my grief comes from a loss of a business, right?
Mhm.
Not from the loss of a person. And it's that passion and it's that zest that you have for helping people get through their shit, if you will, that has actually helped me quite a bit over the last few months that we've gone through, and just doing the weekly check-ins for our business grouping, right? Like we're each working on our separate projects, but we're doing it together. And that's
Yes.
one of the most incredible things that I've seen about your program is the evolution of it, and how it's actually being able to be implemented in a way where now you're reaching out to the jails and the people that are having grief and having to deal with things that they can't do ever again, right?
Mhm.
So not just the living that have lost, but
Mhm.
also the living that have lost things like their freedoms and things like that they can come through with as well. So like your umbrella of grief and helping people through that with your experience as a social worker is just absolutely astounding. Like the things in your head that you've worked people through, like some of those stories, like what are your favorite interactions that you've helped resolve?
For myself, it's actually being working with, even people from the residential schools, with the collective loss of all the children. I've created a workshop on healing the collective trauma of all those children that were buried in these by the schools in mass grave sites, to individual work. So I've been doing all this for the last how many years? And, throughout my life, there's been so many different losses. In 2010, my son's father passed away in a house fire. And then it took 3 days to identify his body. It was actually excruciating. And the hardest and most difficult pain is feeling the pain of your children going through that. And I can't imagine what those parents went through when they had to leave their children, go to the residential schools, only to learn that their children died at the hands of the authorities in those days,
Mm.
which were the government of Canada and also many of the churches, which is really atrocious. So my goal is to help as many people as possible. I said 100,000 people, but millions of people to deal with this. So the Grief Warrior program helps to add on into the toolboxes to help people to deal with or come to terms with grief, put it in the right place, and create some memorial tools. Like I have a beautiful booklet that memorializes my mother and our family. So that's one of the things that they learn. The technical things, how to do a ceremony online, all these different things are so important.
They really
And
are.
I know it complements everything that you're talking and doing, Bryan, because what you're doing is teaching people the different medicines that they can use. You're doing different rituals to help people through different things. And I appreciate absolutely everything that you do. So I know you've mentioned you have a couple of books and exactly some of the services that you provide. So what is the books that you have written? And I know that they're bestsellers. You can share that with us. And also the services that you provide, all the services, and that you're available for public speaking or doing private groups or whatever. Please let us know all of these things.
Oh, absolutely, Lisa.
Floor is
Absolutely.
yours.
I appreciate you very much. So one of my bestsellers was from 2012, and it's the Grimoire of Arts. And if I can find a copy of it, I call it Big Red. Oh, there it is. And so this thing full of notes, right? And the really cool thing about it is inside of it, I have the weddings, I have the funerary rites, I have absolutely everything that I teach my students and have been teaching for 10 years. And there's a process that I absolutely love walking people through. And so it's one of my more intense coaching programs, and it's called the Rite of Transformation. And what it does is it helps the individual embody the full power of their spirit before they cross over. So that way they get to live a full and robust life, and they get to actually feel and see the energies, all of it awakened in their bodies. And that's one of the most profound things that my students undergo over the course of years. They stick with me, is that they'll do that. Otherwise, this is specifically meant for people that are using technique. This isn't one of those you pick up and read it and you can go cover to cover with it in an afternoon. This is something that I've consistently gone back to time and time again, multiple times, sometimes a day, over the last 10 years. Like, this is such an organic document. Like, I'm trying to create a second volume of it. Like, this sucker took 10 years to write, like the first time around. And it's been 10 years since it's released. So I'm going to be creating a second one to complement it, to carry on like all the actual, like, let's get into the science behind it. Let's get into the practical applications of it. Let's get some interviews from the people that have gone through these things, right? And so what most people usually find me for is the unique things that their systems don't deal with. So in Palo, Santeria, Vodou, Ifa, and a few other traditions, there are professional people that have their own stores, their own clients, their own doings, and they'll come to me for types of work that they otherwise can't deal with. And unfortunately, a lot of my time is spent dealing with what I call remote extractions. So that's when a loved one has crossed over, or something has attached itself to the furniture or to the environment. And so they need a purification. And one of my students now owns a paranormal investigation company. And his thing is not about going out there like you see on the TV and riling up the spirits, but I'm teaching him how to use the pendulum so that he can interact with them, so that there can be communication between the living and the other side, so that way we can resolve some of those issues if it is a violent manifestation. And so that's what this book primarily focuses on, is giving the individuals that are working in the field to settle the spirits from places like those residential schools, where there's been places of extreme trauma and pain and suffering and such like that. Like, there was an experience that I had with one of the places when I was living down in Savannah, Georgia, which is the only town that Sherman didn't burn on his march through during the Civil War. He gave it to Lincoln as a Christmas gift. So it has some of the original buildings in there from the early days of the US. And one of those was a tuberculosis hospital that was a Civil War hospital, then converted into a TB ward. There's still active yellow fever under the Forsyth Park. Like, they can't open up one of the tunnels at this place. And when they were doing the renovation for it, they were finding skeletons stuffed in the chimneys. And so the foreman at the time was the boyfriend of a friend of mine's mother. And they asked me to go in and perform the ceremony to cleanse the building and do all of that. And so I did. And now it's not a haunted location. Now it's a residency for memory care facility, which is an absolute fantastic turnaround, because some of the things that were there and what were done were just absolutely atrocious. So absolutely, with what you're talking about, helping people get over the things that the authorities have done to folks over the years is just astonishing. And so helping to reclaim the peace of those spaces has been what I've been focusing on over, because that seems to move the needle forward. Like I've worked for when it was located here in San Diego, there's a company called the Association of Paranormal Study. Alex Matsuo is the owner of that one, and she's currently over on the East Coast, but she's published several books and done several home investigations and things like that. And we've had successful resolution of her, some of those really traumatic experiences that people go through. And that's what I would really love to be able to do more of, is to be able to help people settle their environment and help them if they're dealing with the negative sides of it, not just with the personal grief, but the manifestations of it in an outward form. Like when it becomes violent, when there becomes marks or scratches and things like that appear on the body, that's where I usually get called in most, is that those sorts of situations. But when it comes to dealing with the living and people asking for like wedding rituals or funerary ceremonies and things like that, then we'll set it. I'll get all the supplies, I'll custom make the talismans or whatever it is that we're doing, and I absolutely love doing that for people. And that's always on a customer basis of like, what is it that you're looking for? Tell me about the life of the individual. What is it that you're trying to do? Like, do you want it to be something like, if you're going to be wearing an amulet, if you will, or a talisman that's been made with the grave dirt, or it's been made with the ashes of the individual, those are called phylacteries. They're an ancient Greek term for things that protect the individual. So it's cultivating that ancient wisdom, again, trying to help people with dealing with the other side when it becomes a little too rough for them to be able to handle normally. So I know it's probably a little outside of what your people are going through, but that's generally where I get called in, is when things really go sideways.
Well, I think it's so important to actually, it's kind of like, that the grief is all over here, and it's also concentrating that time and giving it a place and putting it where it needs to belong.
Exactly.
And actually that's what I think helps to bring the calm to the people, is to go through that. So I feel that it's definitely teamwork, especially in dealing with all these different areas of a person's life when they come to an issue, say like trauma of grief. Like you deal with all types of traumas, which is really fantastic, because people need to go through those stages in order to find a place to put their grief or whatever, or their trauma.
Very much agree.
Yeah, so you offer coaching, you do ceremonies. Do you do group? Of course you do groups as well.
Oh, absolutely. And I've got
what types of group services do you have?
So I do a free weekly group for people that are trying to go through the grimoire and they're trying to make it functional. And then I do, it's a 7-level course that I'm developing and I'm teaching on for people that are interacting with spirit. And they want the spirit totem, or they have the vessel that contains the spirit. And so those are usually done in a private coaching sort of, okay, well, I'll make the spirit talisman for you, and then we'll go through the stages on how to make it work, or how to do the offerings with it. So that way you're elevating the dead and you're incorporating them. In Vodou, they call it a Loa, which is an elevated ancestor. And there's a practice that they use that invites the deceased into what they call a govi, which is a ceremonial urn that they place upon their primary altar. And I've had a chance to study with some wonderful people. I'm not a voodoo assant. I don't do the voodoo stuffs, but I do use similar methodologies in creating such totems so that they can create an object of reverence, which becomes an ancestral spirit. It becomes an elevated dead. It becomes someone that you can go to when you're having problems. You can light the candles for. And doing that is my absolute, like, but that's, again, that's the path of the individual that wants to work with that. And so that would be what I would say is my most popular program that I offer, because those are what I get the most requests for. And I've had students over the years, like they last 5, 7, 12 years of interaction with me over these principles. So it's an ongoing mentorship program.
So you're open for business. Are you taking clients on right now?
I am, yes.
Okay. And, you know, so how do people contact you?
So they can contact me through my Facebook page, which is fern.arlock, which was, or they can give me a phone call at 619. Let's see here. I just got a new phone for this. So 619-871-2584. Or you can reach out to me at the urbanfellowship2020@gmail.com. And we can have a chat. We can do a consultation call to see about what kind of services and things like that you would be needing. And we can, you know, to determine what is it that you would want to get up to. Do you want to do a group interaction? Do you want to have interactions with some of my other students, so that way you get to see what it is that goes on when you actually start working with spirit?
Fantastic. I really appreciate your time, Bryan. You seem to have so much to offer the world. And do you have any upcoming events coming up?
So any upcoming events? Right now, I do not. That's something I've got to cultivate a little bit more.
Yeah.
So right now I'm trying to get that second book written. So I want to do a launch party when I do finally get it all cultivated out and everything. But there's a video supplement that I'm doing at the Workable Witchery Workshop.
Okay.
And I'm going through 2 times a day at 10 a.m. and 2 p.m. Pacific Standard Time, where I talk about 10 a.m.
Oh, 10 a.m.
Yeah. So I go through the herbal wisdoms, the different applications of the spell a day, I call it, is the interactions with the herbs, right? And we're on week 11. Today was day 4 of 11 weeks of going live every morning, talking about the different medicines and things like that. And then in the afternoon, I'll either demonstrate or talk about some of the ancient practices or some of the liturgical work, as it were, what books it comes from, what are the applications of that sort of thing. And so that's at 2 in the afternoon. And it's been a lot of fun so far. But outside of that, with developing the courses for the Gray School, it's no major events outside of the YouTube channel have been planned.
Oh, fantastic. So you are taking clients on, and you know, you do have your daily activities that are going on. And what we'll do is we'll post Bryan's information after this recording in the chat box, so people can get a hold of you in your groups, and we'll post it all over the place.
I would love to post this on the workshop. So
yes.
Lise, what courses are you offering right now that I could talk to my people about, or have this available for them when they're watching the video so that they know how to get a hold of you? Like, what is your contact information?
My information is lrwellnessworks@gmail.com. And my phone number is 780-485-7798. So if anybody is interested in my programs, you can also book a chat with me. Go to lrwellness.net to my website. You'll see a link in there where you can actually book a time to speak with me. And you'll get right onto my calendar. So that's what I have to offer. Right now, I have different programs, different price points for people. So I invite you to check out my website. But the biggest program that I have right now is the Grief Warrior Program. It's absolutely everything, where you will learn about how to deal with grief. You're going to go through all the different mechanisms of how to, you know, deal with that, coming to terms with it. Then how to, the resiliency roadmap. And the last part is a life plan, you know, a life plan of how to move forward. So I have experience as a social worker of 36 years, worked with elders very closely all my life, as well as I was a financial advisor. So people can know exactly what to do to create that life plan. what are all your assets, your liabilities, everything that a person needs to know, especially if you're going to pass away. And we all will one day. So you better have a plan. And it's really, really important to have that. So you're going to come out with some examples of wills and put something together yourself. Now, depending on where you live, there's different rules and regulations. So make sure that when you write it up, that it follows through on your state or province that you live in. I know in Alberta here, all you need to do is write out your will and you have your signature and a witness, and that's fine. In other places, it's very different. The other thing that I do have is the Pathway to Peace ebook. And that's online right now, and it's under $30, for goodness sakes. And that's 11 ebooks in one. And it's all the tips that I have utilized over the time. And I did a ton of writing to help myself heal while I was going through my grief. And it's all available for you through Amazon, or you can check out my website. It's for sale there as well. So I encourage each and every one of you. We have products from as low as $4.95 each for the single ebooks to the master program, the Grief Warrior program, which is on sale for $9.97. And if you have a group of 10, it's half that price, because my goal is to get it out to as many people as possible. Because I know as a social worker, oftentimes people go for grief therapy for years and years on end. And I'm trying to shorten that within, this whole Grief Warrior program, which is 16 weeks long. And it will help people to come to terms with it. Also, memorialize their loved ones, have a resiliency plan, as well as have the life plan. And in supplement to that, you'll have the 11 books in one in that entire package. So, wherever you're at, you can access services from the, minimal cost to the maximum. So for myself, when I was going through my grief, I wanted absolutely everything that I could put my hands on, because peace is priceless.
It really is.
And you know what?
Really is.
People will pay whatever it takes to get to that point. And I'm not here to take advantage of anybody. I just want to help as many people as possible in the shortest period of time, so that they can have the best life ever. Because when your life is sucked up by grief, your focus is not there for your family, your work suffers, and your entire well-being suffers. So it's important to actually get the help that you need in order for you to come to terms with your grief, so that you can be passionate about life. So imagine this: you come home and your kids see you smiling and focusing in on them. Imagine a friend noticing you and saying, "It's so good to see you laugh again. Oh my God." And imagine this: waking up in the morning and wanting to get the hell out of the bed and not being stuck. So that really is what I have to offer. So I think between yourself, Bryan, your gifts that you offer the world, and what I offer the world, I think it really can help people to move their lives forward in a great way, where they can actually heal, become, be who they want to be, and share their gifts with the world. Because essentially that's what we're all here for.
I couldn't agree more, Lise. I really couldn't.
So Bryan, with that, I'd like to thank you very much for this interview. You rock, buddy, and you have so much knowledge to share the world. So come on, guys, you've got to go and talk to Bryan. If you're dealing with any kind of issues, if you'd like to learn some new skills and, connect spiritually with those different elements of life, talk to Bryan. He's really very well versed in all of this, and I appreciate appreciate his wisdom, his tenacity to help people, and his passion to completely help people through whatever it is they're going through.
I super appreciate you, Lise. And I'm so thankful that you've got a program like this that I can refer my own students to over the years that we're going to be working together. It's like
the rest of our lives.
Yeah. Oh yeah, this is a lifetime bond that we've got here. It's like there is no oh my God, like anybody who's got problems, I'm always telling people like go see Lise. Like,
yeah,
you're fantastic. I thank you so much for the light that you bring to people.
And for all of you out there watching, there is hope. There are people helping other people to heal out there, especially in this turbulent world. And we're here for you. You're not alone. We are here for you to make a significant difference in your life. So you know what? Contact Bryan, myself, comment below. We're here to serve as many people as possible and make a difference. So with that concludes our meeting today, and blessings to all of you.
Blessings to everybody. Thank you so much, Lise.
Thank you too, Bryan.